Hello, this is a video about Kicad, as you can see. The topic here is trying to edit the symbol file in text editor, and you'll see in a few moments why we would want to do that. So here I'm trying to build a symbol for a LTE modem from Kicad, and you can see in the table editor that we have all of our pins and our pin numbers. But if we select all the things that we want to plot on the table, one thing that's not there is an assignment for what unit this is going to be in. And with a symbol like this with over 100 pins, there's 102 pins, I think, you kind of don't want to make one giant massive symbol, like a big rectangle and try to line everything up all the way around it. You could do that if you want, but for something this big, I'd prefer to work with individual units. And there's also a lot of hidden pins that don't need to be shown. So you can see here I'm kind of looking at the table and looking at the pins. And in the pin settings there, actually let me see if I can skip back. In the pin settings here, we can select whether it's common to all units or not. And basically what that'll mean is if that's checked, then this pin is going to show up on all units. But if it's unchecked, then it'll be just assigned to whatever unit you're currently looking at. So in this case, we're looking at unit A. So by unchecking that, it will only now appear on unit A. But we would have to basically do this manually on every single pin, 102 pins. And we would have to try to figure out what unit to assign it to. And it can get really incredibly tedious. It would be really nice if it was available in that pin table. So that's, I guess, my not bug request, but a feature request for next version of Kicad. This is another thing here. I'm trying to track down why unit or pin 1 shows up like 8 times on the table. Just so you know, I'm recording this video live while I was working in the office, and now I'm doing the voiceover later. Trying to do this minimal edit, keep it really simple for me, workload wise. But yeah, so we can see all of our pins here. For some reason, pin 1 shows up a bunch of times, and there's no reason for that. Deleting them, I think that's a bug. But eventually I get over this and move on. And it'll disappear once we have everything worked out in the text file anyway. So kind of brings me to the point that everything in Kicad is a text file, which is really nice and really handy. If you get yourself into a jam, a lot of times the easier solution, if the feature is not available in the tool itself, then the easy solution is just hit a text editor. So here now I'm setting the number of units that I want to have here, and I decided on 7, and we don't want all units interchangeable, and because that will make them all similar. We don't want to do that. But I'm going to pull up the data sheet here in a minute for the modem, and we'll see why I chose 7 here. So on their data sheet, they've already blocked it out with power, USB, UART, USM, PCM, antenna, ground, and reserved. I am going to group power, ground, and reserved all in the first unit. So that leaves me with 7 total units: power, USB, UART, USIM, PCM, antenna, and other. So those will be my units when I stamp them down in the schematic later. So I'm just going to go ahead and save this where it is right now, and then let's go into a text editor. I need to reload it because I was actually working with it earlier. So this is mostly live, but occasionally I will pause the recording and then do some other stuff and then come back to the recording later. But this whole process took me about 40 minutes or so. So this is the thing where it would be nice to have that in the feature in the table editor. So here I'm indicating where all the different symbols start and stop in this particular symbol collection, right? So there's only 2 in this RF library that I made. But obviously the modem, the LTE modem, is quite long because there's 100 pins in here, right? So the way it notates the units is going to be by appending the 0 and then another underscore and then a second 0. Unit 0 is applicable to all units in the symbol. So right now, all of our pins are basically in that unit 0. However, we have towards the end here, we have unit 2, unit 3, unit 4, unit 5, unit 6, unit 7, etc. Right? And in unit 1, there's already that first pin and a couple of other pins, a reserved pin and a ground pin that I had already assigned manually. I believe the second 0 is probably something to do with whether or not it's got a De Morgan style footprint, which is a completely alternative symbol set. So basically what I want to do is take all these reserved, all these grounds, and then a couple of the power pins and copy all of them from unit 0 into unit 1. And then of course the USB pins into unit 2. So basically here I'm just highlighting, copying, and pasting. But it is pretty easy to get lost in this table or this text file because it's parsed by the computer. It's not meant for, it's human readable, but it's not intended for to be beautiful for humans to read. So white space thankfully doesn't matter. The parser just completely forgets about that. So where we need to, we can just add carriage returns or whatever we want to do, as long as we're using white space in order to kind of give us room to work and also give us a visual cue where to stop when you're scrolling through a really huge 400, 500, 600 line file. And if you've got a library with 20 symbols in it, you're going to get lost incredibly fast, especially if you're kind of needing to go back and forth and back and forth. So adding some white space to let you know where you need to go to is certainly a lot easier. And in a tool like Visual Studio Code, or something that shows like a summary image of the whole entire file list, that's even easier to scroll back and forth if you have white space in there. I'm only using Notepad++ because it happens to highlight the brackets better than Visual Studio Code does, because we don't have a Kicad parser for VS Code. So yeah, basically I'm just finding all the grounds and copying them back and forth into this unit, and then eventually we'll move on to all the other ones. This gets super tedious. Okay, so I didn't show that there, but I did Control S to save the file, and now we're going to reload this in the symbol editor, and we're part way done here. We're not completely done, but we have a lot of our unit. Well, no, we only have unit 1 done, and I'm just checking to make sure that nothing jumps into another unit. But you can see now that all the ground pins and all the reserve pins and a couple of the power pins now are only in unit A, which is unit 1 in the text file. This is another thing that's a little bit weird. I wish they would just call them all unit 0 through whatever, or unit A through Z, but replicate that in the text file as well as in the editor, so that it's not, you don't have to think unit 7 is what alphabet letter, right? Also here I'm just making it clear that comments do not work in these text files. So your only real visual cue that you can use is white space. As far as I know, there's no comment symbol. So the backslashes or this semicolon is just not going to work. And I'll show here in a minute what will happen. But basically, the symbol is no longer going to be available when you run the symbol editor or try to use it anywhere in Kicad. So yeah, it's going to fail when it tries to load the part. So white space though is fine. So just kind of like marking off, the symbol starts here where it says symbol cocktail BG95, and you have the properties, the references, and the U. That's, the reference number is going to be like U1, U3, U7, or R2 or R6, whatever you want to call your references, right? And then our pins have this, let's see, after symbol, cocktail BG95, and then you have the unit number and the De Morgan symbol number 0 or 1. Then you have pin, and then whether it's bidirectional or power input or GPIO or whatever, and then you have the XY coordinates and the reference and the pin number and a few other points about each pin. You have to make sure you copy all of that together. You can't leave any orphaned part or you're going to have a problem. So if you forget to pull the pin number, or especially if you forget the closing bracket for that pin, then the whole file is going to wreck and it won't load. Yeah, so why is it B in the tool but unit B in the tool but unit 2 in the text file? It is weird. It doesn't make sense to me why they did it that way. So I just made myself a little table here because I've still got a lot more copy pasting to do, and I will skip ahead through most of this. But at this point, unit 1 was so long that moving stuff top and bottom from unit 0 to unit 3, unit 0, all those pins were still at the top, and then there's this huge unit 1. So what I ended up, but then unit 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are all just, one little block each of like 4 lines right now until I fill them in. So what I'm going to end up doing here is basically taking all of the pins out of unit 0, copying them all the way back down to the bottom, and then copying them into each individual unit because there's much fewer pins in each unit. And that is just a lot less scrolling up and down all the way to the top of the file and then all the way back down to the bottom of the file. So yeah, I don't want to do a bunch of copy pasting or a lot of scrolling while I'm trying to do the copy pasting. So, and also in this design, I don't want any pins to be common to everything. So basically what will end up happening is unit 0 here, once I select and copy, it's going to end up just an open bracket and a closing bracket, and that's fine. There's no pins in there. It's there's nothing in there. That's totally normal. But as far as I know, unit 0 still has to exist in the text file, though. You can't just obliterate it, or I haven't tried it, but it might also break trying to load the file in the symbol editor again. So here we go. Let's just copy all of this. I have to make sure I don't copy too much, though. Figure out where I need to stop. Right, so I'm copying to that last pin closing bracket, and I'm leaving the final bracket. And so there, now we have an open and a closing bracket for that. So I'll just throw all these pins down here at the bottom, and then I'll copy them in, and I'll skip through the rest of this. So even though white space doesn't matter, it's good for us reading it to try to fix up the white space a little bit when we're done, so that it reads uniformly like with the rest of the pins that are defined there. So here now I've skipped ahead here. I paused the video and did all the copy pasting. So now I have all of my units set up with all the pins that I want in each unit. And then the final thing is make sure you have a closing bracket all the way down at the bottom there at line 554. 553 closes the symbol, and 554 closes the whole file. So again, without it, it's just going to not appear at all in your library. So, I mean, I know it's kind of tedious scrolling back and forth, but it's really good to just confirm all of these components are there, because if you miss one, it might be quite hard to figure it out later, where what closing bracket you needed to put in or didn't put in, or have too many or not enough, right? So again, this is kind of just dressing it up, cleaning up white space that I don't need anymore, just so that it looks sort of uniform again. And I control saved that, control S. Let's go back into the symbol editor, and when we load the RF library, we're going to have a nasty surprise. The file isn't there. Well, it is. The symbol is there, but I had left my comments in that showed where my what my unit names were. So this is kind of demonstrating that, like, anything that's not supposed to be there, and then you're going to be like trying to figure out where is your symbol after you spent all this 45 minutes or an hour trying to edit the symbol. It doesn't show up. You're going to be panicking. Don't panic. It is there. So when we reload it, that's another error. But when we reload it here, we would see expecting an open bracket here on 351, line 351. And that should indicate immediately that the problem is that you have a comment still, or some text that's not supposed to be there. But the trick is you need to close Kicad and reopen it to have it rescan that file before it'll tell you what the problem is. Yeah, so we don't want any comments. So now let's save this again. Go back to Kicad, and we're going to have to see now it's going to not have that symbol even though we fixed it. So we got to reload it, and then it'll scan that symbol again. So it's not there, and I'm starting to panic. Where's my symbol? Where's my symbol? Close Kicad, start it again. And now we get this loading the library thing, and we don't get that second error this time. So and now here we go. We got the symbol, and unit A is all my the pins that don't exist, that we don't show in power, and all my units are. Now the pins are all over the place, which is kind of what you expect, because when you use a pin table, it's just going to line them up straight down vertically from the center point all the way down. And when you've got 200 pins or 100 pins, it's quite a long line of pins. So you got to naturally kind of reorganize them, on the sheet. But now I can take these symbols and I can edit and make a nice block symbol with all the pins, organized and lined up nicely. Here I'm just kind of checking, making sure some of the pins are in the right place. Like pin 1 is not in the right place, so it should be in others. So what I did here, let me go back here and take a look at it again. This was the pin I was playing with early on, right? So it was common to all. So what I want to do is set it common to all symbols, and that will plop the pin down on every unit in the symbol. Sorry, common to all units in the symbol. Now I want to go to the unit I want it to be in and edit the pin. I want it to be in unit G. Now I'll edit it and take it, uncheck common to all in the symbol, and now it's only going to be in unit G, and it's going to disappear from unit A through whatever G, A through F, right? So it gets tedious. You'd have to make it common to all symbols, or all units in the symbol, go to this unit you want, and then uncheck common to all. And when you're trying to do 100, 200 pins like this, it's ridiculously tedious to do. So it'd be really nice if it was available in the table editor. But the next best thing is editing the text. So here I've made organized all the pins, made them all nice little blocks. Now these outlines, you need to make sure that they are not common to all symbols, or to all units in the symbol also. And another thing that's, I guess, less of a feature request or a bug, but the labels that go with the symbol, their positions is common to all, and there's no way to make it individual units. I do believe that there is a solution to this by adding parameters in text file, but that's kind of an irrelevant point because really you can change them later when you put it in the schematic anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But what you do need to do is make sure that, like, if you want to make sure that it sits outside of all units on your symbol, then you want to set it outside of the biggest unit on your symbol, which for me, I always try to make my big mass units as unit A. So we have a new sheet. Now we can put the symbol down. I can find my symbol. There it is. So you can see we have all our units there. We can take a look at them and start with unit A, drop that down, unit B, blah, blah, blah. And now we can rearrange the references or the symbol name. Like, I don't like why it puts it there. We can move it up to the top or whatever you want to do. So you can move them later. So it's not super critical that that be a feature of the symbol editor. And that you can set those positions independent of on each unit, but because you can just do it in the schematic. So I hope that was helpful to some of you trying to do some of these bigger symbol designs. Trying to wrangle all the pins in there. The mass table editor is a really, really nice feature which didn't exist not too many versions ago, so it's definitely appreciated. I really hope that in the next version they can add that unit management into it. Thank you.